What was meant to be a joyful family camping trip full of laughter, s'mores, and starry nights turned into an unimaginable nightmare for the Schmidt family. In the early hours of July 22nd, 2022, an unknown assailant brutally murdered three family members while they slept in their tent. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the community, leaving everyone to question who could commit such a heinous crime. In this video, we'll explore the details of this harrowing case and attempt to understand the tragedy that claimed the lives of three innocent individuals. This is the chilling story of the Schmidt family. Tyler Schmidt was born on November 13, 1979, in Iowa, USA. He grew up in Cedar Falls, a city known for being home to the University of Northern Iowa. From a young age, Tyler joined the Boy Scouts, where he achieved the esteemed rank of Eagle Scout. This experience ignited his lifelong love for nature and camping. Tyler especially enjoyed the camps organized by the Lutheran Church, which encouraged family gatherings. While he learned to play the trumpet in his free time, his true passion lay in adventure and sports. He participated in cross-country running and was a member of the swim team at Northern Iowa High School in Cedar Falls. Additionally, he enjoyed canoeing, hiking, and snowshoeing. His interest in computing led him to Missouri, where he studied computer science at Truman State University. There, he not only earned his degree but also met Sarah, who would later become his wife. Sarah was born on March 27, 1980, in Kansas City. She spent part of her childhood near St. Louis with her siblings Karen, Jane, and Adam. Sarah shared Tyler's love for outdoor activities, especially bird watching and studying insects. Like Tyler, she was a Girl Scout and received the highest recognition, the Gold Award. She inherited her adventurous spirit from her mother, with whom she went backpacking in Central America. It was no surprise that Tyler knew she was his soulmate upon meeting her. As a student, Sarah excelled not only academically, but also in leading student projects aimed at improving school life. Her positive leadership and inclination earned her the prestigious Truman Scholarship while still at Washington High School in Washington, Missouri. This scholarship led her to Truman State University, where she met Tyler. They fell in love, started dating, and she readily accepted his marriage proposal. Both Tyler's and Sarah's families supported their decision to marry, as it was evident that they were perfect for each other and destined to build a beautiful family together. On Saturday, June 22, 2002, friends and family of Tyler and Sarah began arriving, elegantly dressed, at St. John Lutheran Church, located in Cedar Falls. The guests took their seats as directed by the wedding organizers. Seated at the front were Tyler's parents and Sarah's mother with her siblings. Nearby were Tyler's uncles and cousins. Outside the church, Sarah waited to make her entrance, accompanied by her father, who was ready to walk her down the aisle and give her away to her future husband. That day, Tyler and Sarah, both 22 years old, exchanged vows and promised to stay together until death parted them. Their shared love for nature led them to choose Boundary Waters, a well-known wilderness area on the border between the United States and Canada, specifically between Minnesota and Ontario, as the destination for their 10-day honeymoon. In in the first decade of their marriage, Tyler and Sarah focused on achieving economic stability and furthering their professional careers. After earning their bachelor's degrees in Missouri, the couple moved to Lawrence to pursue their respective master's degrees at the University of Kansas, where Sarah eventually worked. As a computer science expert, Tyler worked for a supermarket, a delivery company, and UPS. He also spent 18 years at a company specializing in business-to-business billing and payments. Beyond their professional commitments, the early years of the Schmidts' marriage were filled with adventures. They always found ways to spend time together and explore new natural destinations. They frequently gathered with family or friends to enjoy their shared love of board games. Occasionally, they participated in activities organized by members of the Lutheran Church and, as avid fans of the Kansas Jayhawks, supported the basketball tournaments held at the Allen Fieldhouse. The year 2013 was bittersweet for the couple. On one hand, Sarah's father passed away from a heart attack, a significant loss for his loved ones. On the other hand, after 11 years of marriage, the couple welcomed their first child, Arlo. 3 years later, on September 17, 2015, they experienced the joy of parenthood again with the birth of a beautiful daughter, Lula Schmidt. When Arlo was 6 and Lula was 3, the family moved to Cedar Falls to be closer to Tyler's relatives. Cedar Falls welcomed them warmly, and they soon became active members of the community. Tyler continued working as a software engineer while Sarah started working as an assistant at the city's public library, and the children enrolled in Lincoln Elementary School's preschool. Tyler and Sarah were known for their kindness and willingness to help others, making everyone around them feel important. This commitment earned them the affection of their neighbors and the entire community. The same was true at the library where Sarah worked. Her warmth and friendly demeanor quickly made her well known and appreciated both inside and outside the library. The couple made sure to instill in Arlo and Lula the same passion they had for outdoor activities and nature. In 2021, they began camping with their children, and despite their busy schedules, the children loved these outings so much that the parents made time for them whenever possible. By mid-2022, Sarah was working long hours. Nevertheless, in June, she took a day off to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary and planned to take another day in July to go on a family vacation. She had to finish a project for the library before July 26th, but was determined not to let it interfere with the family's plans. During the week of July 11th, Sarah mentioned to Caddy, her brother Adam's wife, that she would be camping with the children at Maquoketa Cave State Park, a popular destination for hikers and explorers in Jackson County, Iowa, famous for its 13 impressive caves and stunning natural landscapes. On Thursday, July 21st, the family packed their car and drove roughly 140 miles to reach Maquoketa Caves. Tyler and Sarah, both 42, along with their children Arlo 9 and Lula 7, arrived at the campsite before 5 p.m. The camping area was packed, so the Schmidts set up near the park's entrance. A few hours later, around 7 p.m., another family parked about 200 feet from their tent. This was Joe and Cecilia Sherwin, and their 23-year-old son, Anthony Sherwin, from Nebraska. The Sherwins set up 2 tents, one for the parents and another for their son. They were on their way home after a week-and-a-half camping trip that took them to Michigan's Upper Peninsula. The journey had been enjoyable and had strengthened the bond between Joe, Cecilia, and Anthony. Anthony was always attentive to his parents' needs, and his mother often said he was the best son she could have wished for, kind, sensitive, and an exceptional student. That year, Anthony was working on a computerized system to support a business he claimed was worth millions. He mentioned that part of the profits would be used to help his parents financially. Cecilia knew little about the project because Anthony kept the details of the mysterious business to himself, only mentioning that he sent emails under strict security. As night fell at MASSACRE Caves, the campers settled into their tents. Before dawn on July 22nd, the park's visitors were jolted awake by the sound of gunshots. Just before the commotion, a man dressed in black entered the Schmidt's tent and attacked Tyler and then Sarah. Arlo, who had been asleep, woke up to the sound of his sister Lula's screams. As he turned, he saw blood inside the tent. Terrified, he managed to escape and ran to seek help. As he fled, he heard one last shot. Cecilia and Joe, in the neighboring campsite, rushed out of their tent amid the confusion. Joe searched for his son among the campers, asking if anyone had seen him. Arlo, still frantic, ran until he encountered the Sherwins. He was screaming and asking for help, saying his parents had been shot. Cecilia took his hand and ran with him to the park entrance. Once there, terrified and unsure of what had happened, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. She was worried because her son was sleeping near the tent where the shots had come from and feared he might be among the victims. The Jackson County 911 operator understood when Cecilia reported hearing gunshots, but she struggled to pronounce the park's name, making it hard to convey the location. She also explained she was with a boy claiming his parents had been shot. The call between Cecilia and 911 lasted 23 minutes. While she answered questions, the operator relayed the attack to the police and park rangers. Although the call was briefly disconnected, Cecilia persisted and called back, only to be put on hold while the dispatcher contacted emergency responders. Despite the tension and nervousness in the park, adrenaline helped Cecilia stay calm. After providing details about their exact location, she handed the phone to Arlo. The boy explained to the dispatcher that he was in a tent with his mom, sister, and dad, and when he woke up, he saw someone dressed in black holding a gun. The 911 operator asked the child where his father was, and after a pause, he responded that he thought his father was hurt. Around 6:30 a.m., police officers and paramedics arrived at the scene and headed to the Schmidt's tent. What they found was horrifying. All the occupants of the tent were dead. The beautiful campsite had turned into a crime scene. Law enforcement immediately began searching for the shooter, knowing he could be anywhere. The tactical team quickly evacuated MASSACRE Caves, State Park, and Camp Shalom, a Christian summer camp located about 1.5 miles from the site of the attack. As officials evacuated the visitors, they gathered them outside the park. Once everyone was accounted for, it was confirmed that only one person was missing: Anthony Sherwin. He was not only missing but also armed. At 11 a.m., police officers conducting an aerial search spotted a man's body. When they reached him, they found he was deceased. It was Anthony. Although investigations were necessary, the police identified him as the suspect in the homicides. They believed he had committed the deadly attack on the Schmidts and then taken his own life. The incident led authorities to close the park, a measure that remained in effect until July 28th. The Iowa Department of Natural Resources expressed its condolences for the incident. Their spokesperson issued a statement saying she and the entire team were devastated by the event, which had shaken the tradition of enjoying the state's natural wonders. But the legacy would continue for the millions of families who recreate in Iowa's parks. When citizens of Cedar Falls heard the news, they were shocked. The atmosphere changed suddenly, as if a gray veil had covered the sky. The reactions of family, friends, Acquaintances, and even those who didn't know the victims were filled with pain. Cedar Falls was in mourning. In one of the windows of the Cedar Falls Public Library where Sarah worked, a sign was placed with a message saying that Tyler, Sarah, and Lula had left too soon but would always be in their hearts. The company where Tyler worked as a software engineer issued a statement describing him as a consummate professional and a mentor to his colleagues who were devastated when they heard about the tragedy. They knew of the love Tyler had for his children and his dedication to sharing his knowledge with little Arlo. The mayor of Cedar Falls also expressed his devastation over the loss of 3 beloved community members on his Facebook wall. He knew Sarah well as they had worked together on a tech project. The mayor also urged the residents of Cedar Falls to be generous towards Arlo, the sole survivor of the family, who was safe, and he shared a GoFundMe link for those wishing to donate. Within a few days, the initiative had raised over $276,000. In response to the tragedy, the local authority ordered the closure of the library for the rest of the day out of respect for Sarah's co-workers. The tragedy also elicited reactions from other political leaders. Iowa governor expressed her horror at the attack and sorrow for the unimaginable tragedy. And a U.S. House representative from Iowa tweeted that it was a senseless and horrific crime. Sarah's family was heartbroken. Her sister said she felt her life had been shattered, unable to believe that Sarah would no longer be just a phone call away and that she wouldn't see her niece grow up. Sarah's family traveled from North Dakota, Texas, and Michigan to join the rest of the family for the private funeral service held at Greenwood Cemetery. On August 2nd, a gathering was held to celebrate the lives of Tyler, Sarah, and Lula at the picnic area of Overman Park. More than 200 people attended. Several attendees, including Tyler's aunt and the mayor, spoke at the podium set up for the occasion, sharing their feelings and memories of the deceased. The mayor concluded the speeches by confessing that he had once envisioned Sarah, with her heart dedicated to the community, representing Cedar Falls politically in the future. While the loved ones of the Schmidts dealt with their grief and tried to provide comfort and attention to Arlo, authorities continued their investigation into the horrific crime. According to information released by the Iowa Department of Public Safety, based on autopsy findings, Tyler had a gunshot wound and multiple sharp force injuries. His wife Sarah had only sharp force injuries, while their young daughter had been both shot and strangled. In early August 2022, authorities released official information on the case, naming Anthony Sherwin as the person responsible for the Schmidt family's murder. According to the police, the 23-year-old, who had no prior criminal record, was the sole person involved in the incident before taking his own life. The investigation did not reveal any motive for the attack. The assistant director of the Division of Criminal Investigation stated that no connection was established between Anthony and the Schmidt family prior to that fateful day or during their time as neighboring campers. The police department in Nebraska assisted with the investigation. When officers searched the Sherwin family apartment in Nebraska, they found no suicide note or any indication that could explain why Anthony targeted the Schmidt family and himself. His Facebook page was also void of any clues, as it was completely blank. Regarding the weapons used by the attacker, the assistant director of the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation mentioned only one: a hand-assembled firearm which was recovered near Anthony's body. These types of weapons, also known as ghost guns, are built by individuals, often using parts purchased online without any restrictions. Since they lack serial numbers, they are difficult to regulate and trace. Seeking to confirm this information, The Des Moines Register contacted Anthony's parents, who confirmed that their son had built his own weapon using information found online. They explained that he did it as a challenge rather than out of a specific desire to own a gun. They also emphasized that Anthony was very responsible and had never harmed another person or animal. Cecilia asserted that their family had never owned guns and that they had decided to acquire them due to the rising crime rates in Nebraska. She added that, due to their lack of experience, they even took classes to learn how to handle them. The parents explained that they brought the homemade gun on the trip for protection against crime and possibly bear attacks, as they had experienced one night while camping. They also mentioned their intention to dispose of it upon returning home. Anthony's parents set out to prove their son's innocence, convinced that he was a victim of homicide and not the killer. According to Anthony's mother, an independently obtained autopsy report indicated that he had been shot twice, not once as claimed by the police. She suspected that the first shot was meant to incapacitate him, but she could not understand how he managed to shoot himself a second time, challenging the authorities' theory of suicide. Another point they raised was the color of the clothing the attacker was wearing. Cecilia recalled telling the 911 operator that the assailant was dressed in black, which did not match what her son was wearing. Green shorts she had given him the day before the tragedy. Additionally, Cecilia and Joe reported that the police did not disclose where Anthony's body was found or whether the weapon he allegedly used to take his own life was the same one used against the Schmidts. When they specifically asked investigators if a ballistic test had been conducted to confirm matches, they received no answers. All these concerns were outlined in an email Cecilia sent to the media. In the message, she stated that her son had too many reasons to live and she was certain he would not abandon everything in such a manner. They had not seen any signs of him planning such an attack. In her opinion, Anthony was incapable of killing and had no connection to the Schmidt family. According to the grieving mother, the investigators only responded that it was a random murder. Anthony's parents requested the final investigation report to commission an independent review, but claimed they received no response to this request. In January 2023, a media outlet reported that it had requested public records of the case, adhering to Iowa's Open Records Law and the Freedom of Information Act. The request referenced incident reports, investigation documents, crime scene summaries, and autopsy reports. Devin McClone, from the Office of the Iowa Department of Public Safety Commissioner, responded that the requested records were not public and they could only share the immediate facts and circumstances of the case, which were included in the links provided in the press release. A few days later, the media outlet sent an email to the official, inquiring whether the weapon Anthony used to take his own life matched the one used in the murders. She did not respond. Unless new evidence surfaces to the contrary, the police maintain that Anthony Sherwin was a random killer who viciously shot, stabbed, and strangled 3 beloved members of a Cedar Falls family. In contrast to Cecilia and Joe, their son, whom they described as a kind and studious individual, is innocent and another murder victim. They vow to continue their efforts to prove his innocence. After his traumatic experience, Arlo, the only survivor of the massacre, was taken in by his family in Cedar Falls, specifically Sarah's brother. In an exclusive interview with a local newspaper, Sarah's brother stated that his nephew had been very brave and was in excellent mental health. The GoFundMe page created after the tragedy continues to receive donations to support Arlo's upbringing and to establish an educational fund for his future. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.
I stripped his clothes. I cut open his belly to see his guts. They're really pink. Sorry, that was morbid. Then I cut off his head. I gave him a Glasgow smile, but a Joker smile.
Little is known about Brian's childhood because his parents and lawyers made concerted efforts to protect many of his personal details. However, by piecing together information revealed during his 2023 trial, we can sketch a rough profile. Brian was born in 2002 and exhibited an early interest in death-related topics. He had a history of animal abuse and derived pleasure from watching particularly gory content. The timeless question in such cases is this: did exposure to morbid material shape his personality, or was he inherently inclined toward darkness, with violent videos and games simply amplifying his existing tendencies? As Brian reached secondary school, certain disorders became apparent. He experienced severe mood swings and often preferred isolation when his peers were socializing. He rarely attended parties and had a notably cynical attitude. At 15, a family doctor diagnosed him with depression after a series of consultations. A few years later, he complained of severe headaches, prompting a CT scan to rule out clots, tumors, or other abnormalities. The results were normal, but the migraines persisted, causing him ongoing distress. Despite his evident frustration with these medical treatments, Brian remained cooperative, often ending each consultation with a resigned, half-hearted smile. Psychotic disorders were ruled out, but other concerning behaviors emerged. A counselor, contacted by Brian's mother to help him cope with the death of an uncle, observed that Brian showed little empathy for the loss. He admitted he was tired of pretending to feel sad about things that didn't affect him. Over time, Brian's counselor noted his constant questioning of why hurting or stealing was wrong, indicating a disturbing lack of moral understanding. He displayed no empathy for minorities, regarding transgender individuals as less than human. It became evident that Brian harbored a significant, concealed hatred. On multiple occasions, he was known to exploit the vulnerabilities of his peers to mock them. All these observations paint a troubling picture of Brian's mental and emotional state, despite his mother's persistent efforts to seek help for him. Before turning 18, Brian visited the Vocational Rehabilitation Division. The reason was that he claimed he couldn't comprehend how his decisions impacted his future or the lives of those around him. During this time, a third doctor met with him and asked about his future goals. Brian quickly listed his key influences: Adolf Hitler, Columbine shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, serial killer Ted Bundy, and former Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin. The doctor, unfazed, took notes and quickly diagnosed Brian with a low level of autism. She requested further tests to explore his darker thoughts. However, Brian soon found a job, and many of these tests were never conducted. Could these tests have predicted what Brian was about to do? That's a question that remains unanswered. Brian spent several months working various roles at a supermarket chain. One afternoon, he confided in a co-worker that he believed he had no friends and never would. The co-worker smiled and reassured him that everyone there was his friend. "They're only my friends out of pity," Brian replied before getting up and continuing with his tasks. In a way, his comment held some truth. Everyone around Brian felt a mix of concern and pity for him. Despite his outbursts of anger, he seemed to be in emotional pain and frequently sighed. Many saw him as a ticking time bomb, though no one expected what he would eventually do. From what has been revealed, Brian's mother was particularly worried about his well-being. She constantly sought out professionals who could help him and showed concern whenever someone spoke about him. However, after the incident, many agreed that it was in the privacy of his home where Brian's cries for help were no longer heard. Brian's parents admitted that at some point, talking about crimes became an uncontrollable obsession for him. Whether during dinners, family gatherings, or outings, Brian always found an excuse to bring up the topic. He would directly and unambiguously declare that he was planning to kill someone. But Brian's parents, either out of negligence or an inability to accept the truth, convinced themselves he was joking. They even tried to reassure each other, suggesting that Brian's obsession might be the precursor to a career as a forensic investigator or police officer. In their more optimistic moments, they envisioned their son solving crimes or conducting autopsies that would uncover mysteries. However, their optimism would falter when Brian sat in front of them, grinning from ear to ear, and casually discussed ways to dispose of a body. Though his words frightened them, Brian would quickly dismiss their fears by claiming he was merely showcasing his dark sense of humor. He would then head off to work, leaving his parents with a lingering chill. That chill grew more intense as other troubling signs emerged. In the last days of February 2021, Brian's mother felt a spontaneous sense of relief. For over a week, Brian hardly mentioned anything about murders or dismemberments. He seemed more talkative about everyday matters, asking about their work and showing interest in household affairs. He even appeared enthusiastic about his future. His mother recalled the doctor's words, suggesting that Brian's fascination with death might be a phase that would suddenly vanish. But Brian's father was not so convinced. He suspected this newfound calm might be the proverbial quiet before the storm. In hindsight, he wasn't wrong. The storm was just beginning. On the last day of February, Brian's father got into the car that Brian often borrowed and found a wallet under the seat. It was clear at first glance that the wallet didn't belong to any family member. His initial thought was that it might belong to one of Brian's friends or a girl he had dated, but he knew deep down that Brian didn't socialize much and didn't have an active romantic life. With trembling fingers, he opened the wallet and found a driver's license belonging to a man named Warren Barnes, nearly 70 years old. Why was it there? With his heart pounding and fear gripping him, he nervously confronted Brian, unsure of what chilling revelation might come next. Brian calmly explained that he had found the documents on the street. Noticing his father's paranoia, Brian even joked that if he had killed Warren, he wouldn't be so foolish as to leave incriminating evidence in the car. Oddly enough, this logic seemed to make sense to his father, who reluctantly accepted the explanation. But the uneasy peace lasted only a few hours. Later, Brian's mother found a red stain on the car upholstery. Once again, Brian laughed it off, claiming it was paint from a special effects course he had enrolled in. Desperate to believe him, his parents clung to his explanation, their minds racing with doubt and fear. Were they losing their grip on reality? Were they so afraid of their son becoming a monster that they saw signs where there were none? Did that make them worse monsters than their son? They felt guilty for suspecting the boy they had raised, who clearly needed help and seemed incapable of harming anyone. Their doubts made them feel ashamed. Despite this, Brian's mother couldn't shake her instinct that something was wrong. The next day, she took advantage of his absence to enter his room, later claiming she was just trying to tidy up. Whether that was true or she was searching for secrets waiting to be uncovered, she started looking around. After checking under the bed and in drawers, she opened Brian's closet and found a plastic container with bags inside. The bags emitted a nauseating odor that filled the room, making her stomach churn. As she cautiously approached, she noticed maggots crawling out of the seams, their writhing bodies a horrifying testament to the sinister contents within. Horrified and acting on instinct, she took the bags to the kitchen sink. Fighting back nausea, she opened them with a cloth. What she saw made her nearly faint. Barely able to stand, she made 3 calls. The first was to her husband, asking him to come home immediately. The second was to Brian, telling him to come home no matter what he was doing. They needed to talk. The third call took the most time. She dialed 911 and, through sobs, told the operator she had found a head in her 19-year-old son's closet. The operator assured her help was on the way and urged her to stay calm.
911 is John. What's the address emergency?
Hi, there is an emergency. I found something in my son's closet wrapped in a plastic bag.
Okay, what was it?
I think it's a human head.
It's a what?
I think it's a human head.
Why do you think it's that?
Because it looks like it. I saw an ear.
Is it bloody or does it like anything like that?
Just can you just come? Do I have to take a picture and send it to you?
What's
Can you
the
just
address?
come?
Is your son there now?
He just pulled up. We wanted to make sure he was here before we called.
How old is he?
19. He's had a little bit of a fascination with the morbid, but he was channeling it, I thought, into becoming a crime scene investigator, but not so much.
When the police arrived, the sequence of events that unfolded was recorded and remains chilling to those who watch it. It's just a few seconds, but enough to make many lose faith in humanity. Brian spoke about what he did with a chilling lack of emotion.
Okay, so parents have some concerns of some stuff they may have found in your room?
Yeah, I believe so.
And what would it be?
A human head and hands.
That same day, he was arrested.
Like I said, I'll get that errand for you.
Sorry about that.
All right.
He was brought to the police station for questioning.
I should have a mask.
You're okay. Don't worry about it, okay? Keep on walking. Keep going.
His mother was also subjected to interrogation. After some time, he began to reveal some horrific truths.
I stripped his clothes. I cut open his belly to see his guts. It really pained me. Sorry, that was morbid. Then I cut off his head. I gave him a Glasgow smile, but a Joker smile.
His trial took place nearly 2 years later, in January 2023. On the stand, he repeated what he had told those taking his testimony over the months. Even during his initial confession, he appeared almost happy as he recounted his crime. Brian had decided to bring his homicidal fantasies into reality and devised a plan. From reading about serial killers online, he learned the importance of choosing his victim carefully. To avoid getting caught, he needed to target someone who wouldn't be missed, reducing the risk of immediate suspicion. This led him to conclude that his best option was to kill a prostitute or a homeless person. He began patrolling his neighborhood at night, armed with a kitchen knife, driving slowly and watching intently. He studied locations, times, observed routines, and took notes. Gradually, he identified more isolated areas and the least patrolled blocks. His obsession grew, and by February 27, 2021, he had become a predator on the hunt. That night, Brian found his target, a homeless man sleeping under a bridge near Crossview Avenue. Without hesitation, Brian acted on his sinister plan. He activated the vehicle's hazard lights and stepped out with a determined stride. There was no hesitation or moment of reflection. Brian approached the man sleeping on the ground and attacked decisively, killing him with a knife. According to his account, the victim didn't even wake up. The cuts were so precise that he bled out almost immediately. Once the body stopped convulsing, Brian stood there for a few minutes, watching. As the adrenaline began to subside, doubt crept in. Had he left fibers from his clothes on the body? What if, in the frenzy of the attack, he had left fingerprints? He couldn't allow that to happen. It went against everything he had learned. Ensuring no one was watching, Brian proceeded with what seemed the most logical action in his fevered state. He decapitated the victim and severed his hands, placing these parts into bags. He then put the rest of the body into his car trunk after removing the wallet and other documents from the man's pockets. Brian attempted to sink the car in the Colorado River before returning home. It was early morning by then. He locked himself in his room, his heart still racing. The next day, his parents reported the car missing, and Brian acted as if nothing had happened. He even started showing more affection and connection with those around him, as previously mentioned. In the following days, Brian spent hours drawing maps, selecting locations to dispose of the incriminating bags. But he never got the chance. His mother discovered them first. Ultimately, things didn't go as Brian had planned. Moreover, Brian had chosen his victim poorly. Despite his assumption that the man's disappearance would go unnoticed, the reality was quite the opposite. Warren Barnes, 69, was a well-known figure in that part of town, and everyone had a great deal of affection for him. His disappearance was reported on February 28th by the owner of a bookstore on Crossview Avenue between 4th and 5th Streets. Warren was known for borrowing books every morning with meticulous regularity. When he missed his routine, people became worried.
When was the last time you saw him?
Saturday, 5 o'clock. I said, I'll see you tomorrow, Warren, and he was like, okay, meaning he planned on coming down on Sunday, and then he did not show up.
The Colorado Sun revealed that Warren was known in Grand Junction as the reading man. He was a cheerful character who always chatted with neighbors about literature, recommended authors, and engaged in debates. When he saw others feeling down, he would tell them stories to lift their spirits, always parting with a smile and a wish for a good day. Nearby cafe members frequently gave him food and hot drinks, and other shopkeepers left chairs outside their stores for him to sit and read for hours. Occasionally, he did odd jobs around the neighborhood, earning a few bills to keep himself warm when the weather turned harsh. Brian's assumption that Warren's absence would go unnoticed was gravely mistaken. Warren also loved birds and prided himself on recognizing their unique songs. His family had often tried to persuade him to leave his transient lifestyle, but Warren always appreciated their concern while insisting he was content. He enjoyed living simply, respected by everyone around him. Warren believed that despite everything, things could turn out well. He sought nothing more than to have pleasant conversations each day before losing himself in his books and stories. Warren possessed an unusual innocence for his 69 years, devoid of malice and corrosive ambition. Everyone loved Warren. That's why his absence was immediately noticed, and the police were called when he didn't show up as usual. His sister Geraldine recounted how Warren had called her just hours before his death to wish her a happy birthday. He had done so in his cheerful tone, wishing her all her dreams come true. She was the last person he spoke to before lying down under the bridge. never to wake again. During the trial, a group of neighbors requested to testify about who Warren was. They emphasized that not having a home didn't make a person any less valuable or disposable. Two Colorado state psychologists who evaluated Brian for his insanity plea concluded he wasn't insane at the time of the murder. Another psychologist, assessing Brian separately for the defense, argued he had experienced a psychotic episode triggered by the attack on Warren, which subsided shortly afterward. Brian's mother took the stand, expressing her condolences to Warren's family through tears. She asked that Brian's sentence include mental health treatment, insisting her son was more than the sum of his mental defects and actions. She hoped Brian still had a chance to contribute positively to society. "Brian doesn't think or feel like the rest of us," she said, before leaving the courtroom, her voice trembling. A palpable tension filled the room as everyone's eyes turned to the judge. It was time for the verdict. The judge in charge, with 37 years in the judicial system, including 16 as a judge, remarked that this was one of the most horrific cases he had ever encountered. Since Brian had confessed to the crime in detail, his lawyers based their defense on his mental health. They argued that Brian's declaration of wanting to become a famous killer was a sign of his insanity. They also cited his major depressive disorder combined with environmental stressors as factors leading to temporary insanity. However, the prosecution argued the opposite. They claimed Brian had meticulously planned the murder for months and that the dismemberment of the body to hide evidence demonstrated cold, calculated, and meticulous behavior. On February 6, 2023, 20 days after the trial began, the judge delivered a clear decision: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Today, Brian is incarcerated at the Buena Vista Correctional Complex in Colorado. Mesa County Assistant District Attorney Trish Marr conveyed her sorrow over the brutal murder of Warren Barnes. She remarked, "Warren Barnes was taken from us in an incredibly violent manner. His friends, family, and the community deeply feel his absence. This case underscores the checks and balances of our criminal justice system. Justice was served when the jury delivered guilty verdicts, holding the defendant accountable for his atrocious crimes." Meanwhile, in November 2021, a monument was erected in Warren's memory near the main street of Grand Junction. Created by artist Tim Navin, the installation features a chair under the shade of a tree with a stack of books on the seat. Poetically, it serves as a fitting sanctuary. However, the absence of the reading man is still deeply felt in the daily life of the town, which remains shrouded in a bit more sadness following Brian's actions. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations. Allie Kostiel was born in St. Louis, Missouri, but she always dreamed of attending the University of Mississippi. When she finally got this opportunity, she felt like her life had reached its peak. However, things took a dark turn. Investigators noted that no clues or evidence could have alerted Allie's friends before her life was tragically cut short on that fateful July afternoon. Detectives arriving at the crime scene were baffled by how someone could commit such an act against a well-behaved, easygoing student. Their attention quickly turned to their prime suspect, another student with a hidden agenda that no one could have anticipated. Alexandria Costial was born on September 11, 1997, in St. Louis, Missouri. Her long name was quickly shortened to the affectionate nickname Allie, which is what her loved ones always called her. Allie was the daughter of Cindy and Keith Costial, and she had a younger brother named Andrew. From an early age, Allie showed a strong sense of responsibility towards her studies, coupled with her athletic talents. These attributes helped her excel as a standout student at high school. In addition to her academic success, Allie was an active cheerleader, part of the track and field team, the golf team, and a member of the National Honor Society. Her adventurous spirit also led her to volunteer in Peru and Africa, where she taught English to young children. Cindy and Keith were extremely proud of their daughter, as Allie's affection and light touched everyone around her. She loved animals and children, often working as a babysitter to earn some money, and her caring nature made her a favorite among families. Allie also enjoyed dog walking and was an enthusiast of yoga and half-marathon running. Her spiritual nature and constant smile made her approachable to everyone. During this period of her life, she formed a deep bond with Maddie Norris. The two became inseparable, sharing dreams and secrets in a way that felt like they had known each other in previous lives. Their friendship was more like a sisterhood, leading to many shared adventures. After graduating in 2016, Allie enrolled at the University of Mississippi to study business administration. She was thrilled to be part of an institution rich in tradition, history, and football. Her parents witnessed the excitement and joy this new chapter brought to her life. Allie also dreamed of meeting a charming Southern boy with whom she could one day start a family. Despite the distance, her friendship with Maddie remained as strong as ever. It was no surprise to her loved ones that Allie thrived not only academically but also socially. She quickly made new, meaningful friendships, including one with Elizabeth, whom she met at a campus party. They shared several common interests, which solidified their close bond. Among the new people in her life, one stood out as particularly special to Allie, driven by her innocent romantic aspirations. She set her sights on Brandon Thiesfeld, a young man just a year older than her from Fort Worth, Texas. Brandon was the son of Daniel Thiesfeld, a medical professional. Brandon enjoyed an idyllic childhood filled with love and all the comforts any child could wish for. Raised in a good Christian family, he had ample opportunities for outdoor activities like hunting and fishing in the vast Texan landscape. As he grew older, he also shone as a football player at his school. Like Allie, Brandon was a student at the University of Mississippi's business school. They shared mutual acquaintances and even attended some classes together. However, Brandon's temperament was quite different from Allie's. But as the saying goes, opposites attract. According to local records, Brandon was arrested in April 2017 for public intoxication and possessing a fake ID. This wasn't his only brush with the law. He was involved in another incident, though the Oxford Police Department later confirmed that the records of this case were expunged and sealed. Despite these isolated incidents and the generally good conduct Brandon displayed, there was someone who did not find him particularly likable and had reasons for such a perception. Rex Ravita, another student who lived in a dormitory across the hall from Brandon during their freshman year, frequently encountered him. Rex found Brandon's behavior objectionable, considering him a spoiled daddy's boy. According to Rex, Brandon often boasted about his father's wealth and how it could get him out of any trouble, which Rex found particularly annoying. Additionally, Rex had noticed another particularly unpleasant trait in Brandon. He often treated women in a degrading manner. One night, when Allie and Brandon crossed paths at a local bar, she felt an immediate attraction. It didn't take long for them to start dating occasionally, though Allie wished they spent more time together. She often brought him along as her date to most of her parties. However, to almost everyone observing their developing relationship, it was clear that Brandon wasn't as enamored with Allie as she was with him. Despite this, Allie seemed blinded by her initial impression and Brandon's good looks, never seeing through the facade. The evident disinterest from Brandon and his flaws, which were apparent to everyone else, went unnoticed by Allie. She was convinced she had found her dream man and envisioned a future with a home and family. As weeks and months passed, their relationship grew complicated. Around their second year in college, driven by her intense feelings, Allie sent Brandon numerous late-night texts while she was out partying, eager to chat with him. Without any explanation, he blocked her number. During this time, Maddie visited Oxford to see her friend and unofficial sister. Naturally, she was excited to meet the new man in Allie's life, but to her surprise, Brandon didn't show up. During that visit, Maddie became concerned about Brandon's clear detachment, despite the affection Allie lavished on him. Despite this, Allie seemed to be doing well in many other areas of her life. By her third year, she had formed a strong friendship with another university student named Morgan. It was around this time that Brandon inexplicably reappeared as if nothing had happened, seeking to reconnect with Allie. Allie interpreted this gesture as a sign of mutual romantic interest and became filled with hope. However, she was the only one who saw it that way. To everyone else, it was strange, knowing that Brandon had no genuine feelings for her. One of the most astonished by the situation was Rex. Upon learning about the supposed romance between Allie and Brandon, he believed that the young Texan was emotionally manipulating her, making her think he loved her, something Rex was sure was false. Deep down, Allie might have been aware of Brandon's lack of affection. This could explain why her closest friends and even her parents knew very little about him. References to Brandon and their relationship were quite vague. Consequently, none of Allie's close ones were aware of the emotional abuse she was experiencing. Allie often found herself in tears over the man she loved. Her roommate at the time occasionally noticed the sadness in Allie's eyes. However, as she mentioned in a later interview, Allie was a girl who radiated pure light and had the ability to appear happy even when she was sad. According to her, Allie's kindness blinded her to others' malice, making her see people as better than they actually were. In April 2019, Allie told Brandon that she was worried she might be pregnant and sent him a picture of a home pregnancy test. The results were inconclusive, but given the gravity of the situation, Allie expressed her desire to discuss it in person. Brandon's immediate response was like a cold shower. He bluntly stated he had no intention of staying with her if she was indeed pregnant. Over the next 3 months, Allie tried to meet with him to talk about it, but Brandon avoided her at all costs. Sometimes he would agree to meet and then cancel at the last minute. Other times, he simply wouldn't show up and offered no explanation afterward. Amid this emotional roller coaster, Allie continued with her life, hoping the situation would improve, and only communicated with Brandon electronically. Unbeknownst to her, Brandon was spending long hours trying to find a solution to what he saw as a major problem. He spent days researching online about medications and clinics for terminating a pregnancy. Unsatisfied with these options, he even considered more extreme scenarios, looking up how to use a weapon and hide a crime. In the midst of the uncertainty about their relationship status, the vacation period arrived. Allie decided not to travel back home to Missouri. Given that she was in her final year and had high academic ambitions, she chose to stay at the university in July to attend a summer course. Additionally, she was teaching fitness classes at the time, which motivated her to sacrifice her break to earn extra money for her expenses. However, Cindy and Keith were not willing to miss the opportunity to be with their daughter. They informed her that they would come to visit. Allie was overjoyed at the news. Once her parents arrived at her apartment, the three of them had the most wonderful days together. Allie and her mother went shopping and chatted endlessly about countless things. There was so much to catch up on that the hours seemed too short. Knowing Allie's love for the sea and the beach, Cindy gifted her several new items, all with a marine theme, to reflect her interests in her home. Allie, in turn, repeatedly asked her mother to cook her favorite dishes. When it was time to say goodbye in mid-July 2019, Allie wished her parents could stay for at least one more day. As Cindy and Keith headed back home, they comforted themselves with the thought that their next reunion was just around the corner and they just needed to be patient. Shortly after, Brandon contacted Allie via text message. Just as he had done previously, disappearing and reappearing months later as if nothing had happened, this time he requested a meeting to discuss the delicate matter in person. On Friday, July 19, 2019, back in St. Louis, Cindy called her daughter to confirm everything was all right. True to her word, Allie went to a bar that night. A while later, surveillance cameras captured her leaving the place, wearing a white shirt and blue shorts, with her head down, seemingly texting. The footage shows her in front of the door, though she doesn't enter the establishment. Afterward, Allie returned home but left again without her roommates hearing. Around midnight, she finally met up with Brandon. The details of what transpired next have been elusive to the authorities. No one knows what was said or the tone of their conversation. It's assumed there were accusations and clarifications, but this remains speculative. What is certain is that Allie and Brandon met face-to-face at a lake, a vast area surrounded by numerous campsites and recreational spaces. Due to its size and characteristics, the sheriff's department has long patrolled its various nooks and crannies. During the early hours of Saturday, July 20, 2019, the moonlight was the only illumination for the patrolling officers. The prevailing darkness was far from romantic. According to police sources, a local resident walking their dog reported hearing gunshots in the early hours of that morning, between 2:15 and 2:30 a.m. The attacker fled the scene. Around 10:30 a.m., a police investigator was on patrol, not expecting to discover the lifeless body of a young woman. The discovery occurred near an abandoned fishing camp, a remote location about 20 miles from the university. Overcoming the initial shock, the police officer was able to gather some general information about the victim. This experience marked a significant turning point in his career. Allie's purse, containing her school ID and driver's license, was found nearby shortly afterward. When the police department was notified, investigators began their efforts to uncover what had happened. They attempted to trace Allie's cell phone but were unsuccessful. Meanwhile, that Saturday, Brandon spent the day with friends, behaving as if it were any other day, showing no apparent signs of distress. They went bowling and chatted normally, with none of his friends noticing anything unusual. At some point between Saturday and Sunday, Brandon wrote a letter to his parents, revealing his anguish over his actions. Though he avoided explicitly mentioning the crime, he confessed to something terrible that would likely result in his imprisonment or death. He was certain that sooner or later the police would catch him. As investigators delved into Allie's social circle, Brandon emerged as a potential suspect. The team focused their efforts on trying to contact him, but all calls to his cell phone went unanswered. On Saturday afternoon, the police visited Allie's family to deliver the devastating news. The words hung in the air, creating a surreal sense that they were living a nightmare. Overwhelmed with grief, Cindy and Keith had to face an unimaginable reality. Allie's close friend Maddie struggled to make sense of what had happened, her mind flooded with memories of the time spent with the friend she considered a sister. Meanwhile, the police continued their attempts to reach Brandon. By then, he had left his friend's house and was driving his truck. Allie's cell phone remained missing. The news of the crime shocked the university community and local residents. However, due to the ongoing investigation, the police withheld further details. As a result, it was unclear whether the attacker had killed Allie at the lake or abandoned her there afterward. The same confusion surrounded the murder weapon and the connection between the victim and the perpetrator. This changed when investigators made a crucial discovery. In Allie's room, they found her smartwatch, which turned out to be an invaluable piece of evidence. The smartwatch allowed them to uncover some of the text messages exchanged between Allie and Brandon. Realizing the urgency, the team immediately tried to contact Brandon, who this time answered their call. He apologized for not responding earlier and made excuses to avoid meeting with the officers, but promised to come to the police department first thing on Monday, July 22nd. After hanging up, fully aware of his predicament, Brandon continued to travel as far as possible. On Sunday, July 21, 2019, he arrived at another friend's house carrying an unusual item, a firearm. He made no effort to hide it and even unloaded it in front of his host. Brandon also brought a six-pack of beer, so they sat down to drink, chat, and watch television. The next morning, he left without attending the scheduled meeting at the police department, thus becoming a fugitive. Detectives obtained an arrest warrant and began tracking Brandon's phone. Having left Mississippi, Brandon's location was soon identified as Memphis, Tennessee. Authorities issued an alert for his truck, which had a distinctive license plate. It didn't take long for the Memphis Fugitive Task Force to get a positive result. About an hour and a half later, the prime suspect, wearing a blood-stained shirt, was apprehended outside a gas station in the southwest part of the state. The operation involved at least 12 officers and 7 police patrols. Inside the vehicle, they found a firearm matching the one used in Allie's murder. Mississippi investigators were promptly notified. They headed north to pick up Brandon. Upon arrival, he found Brandon calm. He read him his rights and then transported the suspect back to Mississippi in custody. Once they reached the station, Brandon recounted his activities during the weekend of the crime, revealing that he had been roaming around Oxford from Friday to Saturday. Beyond that information, Brandon remained steadfast in his right to remain silent, refusing to provide further details to the investigators. He was detained at the county jail, and his family soon hired an attorney to handle his defense. In a statement, Brandon's father insisted that his son was not involved in the incident. He urged everyone to presume Brandon's innocence, confident that the ongoing investigation would reveal what he believed to be the truth. However, he was unprepared for what was to come. The first blow came when a university spokesperson confirmed that Brandon was suspended from the institution. Meanwhile, Allie's autopsy revealed that she was not pregnant at the time of her death, but this information was not shared with the media. Allie's funeral took place on Saturday, July 27, 2019. Friends, family, and community members left flowers and condolence notes. Despite their indescribable grief, they felt fortunate to have known such a vibrant and luminous young woman. In August of that year, Brandon was charged with first-degree murder. If found guilty, he could face the death penalty. His name made headlines. When Rex heard the news, he was initially shocked, but soon, everything seemed to make sense. He recalled all the rude and contemptuous comments Brandon had made about various women. For the prosecutors, the case became a textbook example of ignored warning signs in relationships that can lead to tragic endings. They believed that Allie's death could have been prevented. As the search for evidence continued, investigators discovered the letter Brandon had written during that weekend while searching his apartment. The COVID-19 pandemic delayed the start of the judicial process, requiring extra patience from Allie's friends and family. However, the investigators used this time to continue their work, sifting through hundreds of text messages between Allie and Brandon, a daunting task. Meanwhile, the prosecutors continued to build their case, gradually uncovering the details of an unequal love story. A series of facts, previously unknown to those close to the university student, came to light. When the case was finally presented to a grand jury in mid-2021, the evidence included photographs of the gun and bullet casings, as well as the letter. To the prosecutors, this letter was clearly a confession. However, the defense presented a completely different perspective. As Brandon pleaded not guilty, his lawyer argued that the letter was merely a farewell note, as Brandon had contemplated taking his own life at that time. To support this claim, the defense mentioned that Brandon himself had stated he was holding the gun to his head when he suddenly fainted. It was during this moment that the courtroom learned from Allie's autopsy report that she was not pregnant and had no evidence of ever having been pregnant. The revelation caused an unmistakable shock. The trial proceeded until, unexpectedly, in August 2021, just a week before the sentencing, Brandon chose to admit his responsibility for the crime. He and his legal team reached a plea agreement with the prosecution to avoid the death penalty. Instead, he received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. During the sentencing hearing, Brandon addressed Allie's family, apologizing for the immense pain he caused by taking their daughter's life. He acknowledged that his actions had permanently altered the lives of the Kostiel family and his own. He expressed a desire to turn back time and undo his actions, but knowing that was impossible, he sought forgiveness from God and hoped that one day they might find it in their hearts to forgive him. Following Brandon's statement, the victim impact statement was read aloud in court, delivered by Cindy, Allie's mother. In her letter, she expressed regret for not being able to keep her daughter away from Brandon, whom she described in stark terms as a monstrous, heartless, scheming, ungrateful, sinister, violent, and corrupt individual. Cindy also added that Brandon had every opportunity to do good in the world, but chose to do evil. Because of that choice, he would spend every day of the rest of his life in prison. She reminded everyone that it was an atrocious act he committed against a sweet soul like Allie, and predicted that every time the cell door slammed shut, it would be a reminder of what he did and the life he took. Those who knew Allie hold on to the certainty that the actions of her attacker will never extinguish the sweet light she brought into the world. On the contrary, they know that her spirit will live on through the lives she touched, as Allie always strived to make the world a better place with every step she took. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.